Ambassador Elena Vasquez had developed quite the reputation across the galactic diplomatic circuit, though not entirely for the reasons the Earth Colonial Authority had intended. While her negotiation skills were exemplary and her cultural sensitivity, training scores were off the charts, it was her peculiar habit of bringing her own tea service to every meeting that had become legendary among the various species of the Galactic Confederation. Today's meeting on Station Kepler 442b was supposed to be routine, a simple trade agreement discussion with the Zephyrian Mining Consortium. Elena sat across from 12 representatives of various species in the circular conference chamber, her delicate porcelain teacup balanced perfectly in her hands. The tea was Earl Grey, imported at considerable expense from Earth, and she had just taken her first sip when everything went sideways. The lead Zephyrian negotiator, a crystalline being whose translator rendered his voice in clipped, mechanical tones, suddenly stood and announced, "This charade ends now. Human, your species' expansion into our territories will cease immediately, or we will ensure it through force." In perfect synchronization, all 12 aliens drew weapons, plasma rifles, neural disruptors, and various other implements of destruction that Elena's enhanced diplomatic training had taught her to recognize. The familiar weight of her teacup remained steady in her right hand as her left casually adjusted her suit jacket. "Gentlemen," Elena said, taking another measured sip of her tea, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." The Arcturus delegate, a 6-armed insectoid creature, chittered aggressively. "No misunderstanding, Deathworlder. Your kind spreads like a plague. Today we make an example." Elena nodded thoughtfully, as if considering the philosophical implications of their statement. She had grown up on Kepler 186f, one of the more notorious death worlds in human space, a planet where the gravity was 1.4 times Earth's standard. The atmosphere required constant filtration masks, and the local wildlife included acid-spitting plants and predators that could phase shift through solid matter. Her childhood had consisted of walking to school through territory that would require military escorts on most civilized worlds. "I see," she said, placing her teacup on its saucer with the gentle clink that her grandmother had taught her indicated proper breeding. "And you believe threatening a diplomat will accomplish this goal?" The Rigelian representative, a gelatinous creature in a containment suit, pulsed an angry orange. "Humans think they are invincible because they come from dangerous worlds. Today, you learn otherwise." Elena smiled, the expression somehow more unsettling than any snarl. Dangerous worlds. She seemed to taste the words like her tea. "Do you want to know what I had for breakfast this morning?" Before anyone could respond, she moved. The teacup never wavered in her right hand as her left shot out, fingers closing around the barrel of the nearest plasma rifle. The Zephyrian holding it barely had time to register surprise before Elena's enhanced grip strengthened by a lifetime of crushing handshakes with things that could literally crush diamonds bent the weapon's barrel into a pretzel. She tossed it aside with a casual flick that sent it embedding in the chamber's reinforced wall. A neural disruptor swung toward her head. Elena leaned back just enough for it to whistle past her ear, simultaneously bringing her knee up into the wielder's thorax with precisely calculated force. Enough to disable, not kill. The creature folded with a wheeze, 2 more weapons discharged. Simultaneously, Elena pivoted on her heel, her grandmother's deportment lessons serving her well as she maintained perfect posture while the energy beam seared the air where she had been standing. Her free hand caught a Taosetian by the wrist, applying pressure to a nerve cluster that her xenobiology briefings had identified as particularly sensitive. The alien's claws retracted involuntarily, dropping its weapon. The entire exchange had taken perhaps 3 seconds. As I was saying, Elena continued conversationally, deflecting another rifle barrel with the back of her hand while her tea remained perfectly level. "I had Kreela fruit for breakfast, from my homeworld." A ripple of genuine fear passed through the remaining armed aliens. Kreela fruit was legendary, even among Deathworld produce. It was essentially a hand grenade that grew on trees, requiring specialized handling just to transport safely. I ate it, Elena added helpfully, catching another alien's weapon in a grip that crushed the trigger mechanism with my bare hands for the texture. The Arcturus delegate made a desperate rush, all 6 arms wielding different weapons. Elena sidestepped with balletic grace, using the creature's own momentum to send it tumbling into 3 of its companions. A plasma bolt seared past her shoulder, close enough to singe the fabric of her suit jacket. Now that, she said, frowning, at the damaged material was simply rude. What followed could barely be called a fight. Elena moved through the remaining armed aliens like a gentle hurricane, her movements economical and precise. Weapons were twisted into abstract sculptures. Pressure points were struck with surgical accuracy, and various non-vital appendages were restrained with what could only be described as aggressive courtesy. Through it all, the teacup remained steady. When the dust settled literally, as several aliens had impacted the chamber walls with enough force to shake loose some decorative particles, Elena stood in the center of the room, surrounded by 12 thoroughly disarmed and somewhat traumatized representatives of the Galactic Confederation's most aggressive species. She took another sip of her tea. Now then, she said, settling back into her chair and crossing her legs with practiced elegance, shall we discuss that trade agreement? I believe you mentioned something about mineral rights in the Proxima sector. The lead Zephyrian, now weaponless, and nursing what appeared to be several bruised crystals, stared at her in something approaching religious awe. You didn't spill your tea. Elena glanced down at her cup, which indeed remained filled to the precise level she preferred. Of course not. It's Earl Grey. Do you know how expensive it is to ship tea from Earth to Station Kepler 442b? The Rigelian delegate, its containment suit now showing several stress fractures, pulsed a weak yellow. What are you? Elena smiled, the expression warm and genuine now. I'm a diplomat from a Deathworld, gentlemen. We're trained to handle all sorts of hostile negotiations. She gestured elegantly toward the conference table. Now, shall we begin? I find that productive discussions pair wonderfully with good tea. As the aliens slowly, carefully, returned to their seats, most now viewing, Elena, with the sort of respectful terror usually reserved for natural disasters, she made a mental note to request hazard pay for this assignment. After all, she'd nearly spilled her tea. That sort of close call deserved compensation. The trade negotiations proceeded remarkably smoothly after that.